Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Inside Boxing Weekly show is brought to you by Power Plus Mouthguards, Gridiron Mo, Replenishing Care Technologies, and now MyBookie.ag. I want to welcome in, of course, I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and I want to welcome in my co-host. First up, John Einreinhofer. How you doing, John?
Good to be here tonight, Mike, on a big fight week.
Yep, all right. We'll see how big it is. And also, as always, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm always doing well. Happy to talk boxing with you guys. Let's get it rolling.
All right, so we will start off with Ray Vargas against Ronnie Rios on the HBO card. It goes opposite of the, I guess, what are they calling it, the money fight. But Vargas won the vacant WBC super bantamweight title. I know that always gets John Einreinhofer excited with a majority decision over Gavin McDonnell. He'll defend against Ronnie Rios, who I think Rios' best competition he lost to Robinson Castellanos. John, what's your take on this fight?
Rios is actually a pretty good boxer. He's fought well since that Castellanos loss. He had a decision over Jason Velez when Velez was still fighting a little bit better. But Vargas is one of the better up-and-comers in that area, as loaded as featherweight is, and you got a lot at 122. As you alluded to, Mike, yeah, not crazy about vacant junior division belts, but Vargas is he's an undefeated puncher, and even if you take featherweight and 122 combine him, he's one of the better guys coming up in that region. So I think that he should be able to handle Rios. Rios is not a puncher at all, so he doesn't bring any kind of a threat to bring any pop. So I think Vargas should have too much for Rios.
All right. You agree with John, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, you look at the Castellanos fight, and Rios is a good fighter. He's got good volume. He picks his punches pretty well. But nothing about him strikes me as being anything special. Vargas, to me, the win over McDonnell was far and away better than anything Rios has done. And I expect Vargas with his work rate and his power, I think it'll just be too much for Rios. I expect a late knockout.
Yeah, I agree. I do think this is a solid matchup, especially compared to some of the other fights we have this weekend. The main event, Miguel Cotto, possibly his last fight. First time he's fought in a couple years when he lost a unanimous decision to Canelo Alvarez. Before that, he'd won fights against Gil and Sergio Martinez, where he won the weight title. Takes on Kamegi. Kamegi had two fights with Jesus Soto Carras. One was a 3-round draw, I believe it was, or a split draw, where he got cut. But in the rematch, he stopped Carras in the 8th round. Jeremiah, do you give Kamegi much of a chance here?
Well, I don't give him much of a chance. I mean, Kamegi he's just so raw. I mean, I like him. He's great when you put him in against guys like Soto Carras and guys like that. If you were to put him in the ring with a guy like Alfredo Angulo or somebody like that, a raw brawler type. James Kirkland, I think, would be a fun fight. But, when you put him in against even an aged, well-rounded veteran like Miguel Cotto, I just don't think that suits Kamegi all that well. He's not one of those guys who integrates offense and defense. And Cotto, I expect he'll show up like he always does. He always shows up in good shape. He's just too much for Kamegi. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cotto is, depending on how far over the hill Cotto really is, I wouldn't be surprised to see Kamegi give him some tough spots, but Kamegi is just too raw. I mean, Cotto has too many tools at his disposal. I expect he'll outbox him. I don't think he'll stop him, however.
Yeah, but as Jeremiah said, John, it's been a while since Cotto's fought. It's been a couple years. He was coming off a loss. Do you give Kamegi much of a chance here?
I don't, but what you just stated, Mike, is his only chance, is that, Cotto...
yeah, but a lot of times that can be a big chance.
Yeah, is that Cotto just hasn't been active. But, Kamegi, remember Kamegi lost to Robert Guerrero, and you saw how Robert Guerrero performed after that?
Yeah, but he did lose to Guerrero. I think it was a couple of years ago, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but who has he fought since? A washed-up Jesus Soto Carras, who hadn't even been active, 2 fights against him. It just doesn't really mean anything significant when then you're going to step in with a guy like Cotto. For me, the only thing that really matters about this fight is just that Cotto's had a legitimately great career. When you look at who he's fought and the fact that he's covered the traditional welterweight and even middleweight division, being the lineal champ, his career stacks up with some of the better eras in boxing history, like the early '80s and some of the other eras. In other words, as a kind of guy that would have fit in those types of eras. Not saying he would have necessarily been at the top, but he fits in there. So I have to have respect for him now that he's nearing the end with all he's done career-wise, the guys he's fought, all he's accomplished. But other than that, this fight doesn't really mean anything to me. I mean, Cotto hasn't been fighting. Okay, so he beats Kamegi. What does that mean? Who do we look for him to fight next? We really won't be able to tell much from what he's in with Kamegi, even if he stops him. And I would say the way Cotto was fighting before he laid off, he would be able to stop Kamegi, even though Kamegi has shown he's a pretty tough guy, because Cotto had been banging hard with that left hook, even at middleweight. You saw what he did to Daniel Gil and Sergio Martinez. I don't think he got enough credit for blasting Martinez out the way he did. He hurt Martinez early, and that's really why Martinez was flopping all over the place.
I thought it was more because Martinez was old.
No, Martinez was old too. I agree with that, but I think that Cotto put some hurt on him.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jeremiah.
No, I was just going to say, it's a mixed bag. I mean, Martinez was certainly on the downslope. I mean, you look at his recent performances against, guys like Baker, Murray, who else did he fight? Macklin. I mean, he had some legitimately tough decisions, some tough times with some guys that, he wouldn't have in his prime. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag there. But I do want to ask, okay, because we are only in August. Does Cotto get anybody else before the end of the year? I know somebody like David Lemieux is really chomping at the bit for a shot at him, but I don't know if it happens.
Yeah,
I think it's also possible this could be his last fight.
I think he'll fight again. I don't think he'll end it with Kamegi, but he seems like he's aligned with Golden Boy now. There's got to be something there. So Lemieux at middleweight, he would be a possibility, I suppose. I don't know. Golden Boy's not deep with what they have, just like Top Rank. That's the problem those two companies have a lot of times if they don't cross over and fight each other's guys and things of that nature, or bring somebody else in. So, Golden Boy has Lemieux.
Does he beat Lemieux?
I mean, Lemieux to me is still always a vulnerable guy. That's kind of what you're looking at this thing Saturday night is just really an evaluation of Cotto. You're trying to use the eye test to see what he's got left. But Kamegi, like Jeremiah said, is crude, and you would think Cotto is going to be able to punch in between and punch sharp and hit him with some stuff. And if he can't, then he's going to be size-wise, he's going to be outmatched at middleweight almost all the time, if not every time. So, if he doesn't look any good and he gets a win or something, but he can't stop him, he doesn't look good, then he's really got to think, where does this really go?
All right, and then we will go to the money card. We got Gervonta Davis, undefeated. Looks like the real deal, but we don't know yet. I mean, his wins over Pedraza and Liam Walsh, can't really convince you of that yet. But he will defend against the undefeated 19-0 Francisco Fonseca. Why? John?
Excellent question, Mike. Excellent question, and that's one I cannot give you an answer for because I've basically been a booster of TBC, and I still am for what they still try to do compared to the other promotional outfits and organizations out there. But with that said, I am a believer in Gervonta Davis. I've said it before, and I'll still say it, not because he's doing anything wrong, but just because of his style, kind of a physical, explosive style. I think he'll have a great short run. That's what I'm predicting for him, and I hate to see it wasted in a great spotlight situation against this guy Fonseca. We know they did talk about Salido first, and then they talked about Roman Martinez, and those weren't good opponents. The Salido thing was a little more interesting, but I think at this stage Davis would have put serious hurt on him. I don't blame Salido if he didn't want.
Yeah, but I think with this fight on this card, this is just a showcase, and they didn't really want to give him much to fight against, anyways.
I agree with you, Mike. I think they made a mistake there. I think even though I can't argue that if there's ever going to be a casual fan viewing base, it's going to be on this card Saturday night. But even those kind of fans, there's almost a little bit of a sense, somehow going in, like you just would have liked to seen Gervonta Davis, more confidence in him, and a better matchup, because I think that would have been the kind of showcase that would have impressed everybody. In other words, let's say he was in with a tough opponent in this one, and he blasted out that opponent, which I think he's the kind of guy that's capable of doing that at this stage of his career early on, with that combination of explosiveness and power, speed. But we're not. If he does it against this Fonseca guy, I mean, he's a massive favorite. It's just not really going to mean anything to anybody.
Yeah, but don't you think maybe you could sell some UFC fans on it? Because I don't think that many boxing fans are buying this pay-per-view anyway.
Yeah, there's some talk of that it's going to be a majority UFC viewership. But I think as we've gotten close, I'm getting a feeling myself that it's too big of an event. A lot of people are going to say that they're not going to pay attention, or they're not going to buy it, and they're going to buy it anyway. So I think the numbers are going to reflect that.
I don't think they will. I don't think the numbers are going to be as great as people think they're going to be. But
we're going to find out. We're going to find out. We're going to find out in a couple of days.
Yeah, I guarantee you I'm not buying it either way. But that brings us to a fight that I would like to see, but I won't pay $100. Oh, wait a second. I forgot about Jeremiah. I know he was going to pick Fonseca in an upset. Jeremiah, go ahead.
Yeah, you guys are completely underrating Fonseca. I mean, he is number 2 pound for pound on the coast out of Costa Rica, and he's riding a 5-fight knockout streak. You guys are really, no, I'm kidding. I mean, who is this guy? Nobody really knows him. Maybe his parents. I don't know. Maybe his brother, sister. I don't know if he has a girlfriend. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
his brother and sister know him.
Well, I know there is another boxer named Freddie Fonseca out of Costa Rica. I don't know if they're related or not, but I mean, it's just a complete mismatch. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest with you. Davis is going to win. He's going to look good. I just hope he moves on to bigger and better things. But who that is, I don't really know. Does he get Burchelt, Corrales? Lomachenko isn't. He's not on the menu. I know that. So I just want to see where he goes from here. And I think he could be up top of the 130-pound division, aside from Lomachenko, of course. So it's
of course, your boyfriend has to stay at the top.
Well, I mean, that's just a mismatch, So they're not going to entertain that idea, anyways.
Well, it's definitely a mismatch right now. The kid's nowhere near ready for that because they haven't put him in against anybody. But that's kind of the sad state of boxing, that somebody can call himself a champion and he hasn't really fought anybody.
Isn't it? God, what a sad state of an affair.
Yes, but what the hell. That brings us to a fight that I am actually interested in. But like I said, I won't pay $100 to see it. We've got Nathan Cleverly against Badu Jack. Cleverly, I mean, I don't think Cleverly's got much of a shot here. I think Jack's a better fighter. I don't think Jack's a great fighter, but I believe he is an above-average fighter. He's beaten guys like Durrell. He's beat Boutte. He's beat Groves. He had the majority draw, I think it was, with the gal. Cleverly, the thing that sticks out to me, and this was not a long time ago that it happened, but he lost unanimous decision to Fonfara. Unless Fonfara went downhill real quick right after that. That doesn't look like a very good loss to me. Jeremiah, what's your take? I think Jack wins this fight.
Yeah, no, I think you're right here too. I mean, this is really a money promotion, so I don't think they were going to stick Jack with anybody stiff. I mean, but I do like Cleverly a lot. I do have a lot of respect for him because he's a guy that he brings it. He shows up every time.
Yeah, he's a good fighter.
He really is. I mean, you look, he beat Tony Bellew, back in 2011. I mean, he fought Sergey Kovalev, got whipped, no shame in that. Had another close fight with Tony Bellew in 2014. Fought Fonfara closely, beat Brammer, who's a good fighter. Of course, there was a little controversy in the stoppage, but he's a good fighter. I mean, I like him. He it's just the problem is Badou Jack is susceptible to to a heavy puncher. And Cleverly is not that. I mean, Jack did get stopped early. I believe it was in the first round, in his only loss in his career. So if you can't punch hard, a lot of these guys at 175 do. Cleverly is just not one of those guys. So for me, this is just a safe pick. Cleverly, he's going to box nicely in spots. He's going to give Badou Jack some trouble. But Jack he's really a physically strong guy. He likes to put the earmuffs on, come at you, toss the 1-2. I expect him to break Cleverly down near the end and probably stop him. But, Cleverly will give it his all. And if I'm not going to pay for the card, of course, but if I happen to stream it, I'll definitely tune in for this one in particular.
All right. John?
Yeah, I basically agree with both of you on this one. I don't think Jack will stop him, though. Jack's not a great puncher, but I think he throws straight shots. He'll be throwing a lot of straight shots inside of Cleverly's punches, and I think that'll probably make the difference. That I see Jack winning a pretty clear decision, but Cleverly's good enough that he'll be competitive. With the Brammer win, he did slip into, including mine, he slipped into all the legitimate top tens. Jeremiah can maybe give us some insight on why Transnational has him at 4, but
Jeremiah, could you give us a little clarification there?
Honestly, I haven't been around that long, so I can't. I mean, to be honest with you, I may be a board member, but it seems like there's some British bias, on the board itself. I mean, there are a lot of Brits, and not only are there a lot of Brits, there are a lot of what they call expatriates, so guys who are British but live in Thailand or, somewhere overseas. So my guess is there's a little British bias there. I just can't see So let me see if I can go back and examine the rankings, because if I'm not mistaken, Brammer was rated highly. He was rated pretty highly by Transnational before that win. So my guess is that he just supplanted Brammer in that position. My guess is that, again, I would have to go back and look. I can look at the archives, but my guess is that Brammer was rated really highly by Transnational, and then again Cleverly beat him, and then he basically took over his position. So I don't know if Brammer at 4th at 175 is correct, but that's just my guess.
Jeremiah's got the right instinct, because Brammer just popped in there for them at 10, and I think they have Marcus Brown out now, which is a head scratcher. I'd have to look at it, but he did pop back in at 10, which I couldn't quite figure out. But we don't want to digress too much. But I'll give him credit, though. I hadn't seen him make this kind of a move before, and I think it's an excellent move. I think that they need to be creative like that. They did insert Nate Gallimore, who had that big win over Deloach in the U.S. at number 6 at 154, which I was happy to see him make a move like that. So I think that's a good creative ranking there, because he's looking formidable over his last couple of fights, and people don't know him. But they put Brammer in. They put Brammer in at 10, and they've got Marcus Brown out. That's the kind of thing that they were Cleverly at 4. That's the kind of stuff they got to work on.
Yeah. Well, so I went back and looked at the rankings real quick, and it looks like they had Brammer at number 4 before he was beaten by Cleverly. So I guess that's exactly what it is.
All right, we have this cleared up now.
Yep.
We're just getting the fight, the proper significance of the Jack Cleverly fight put into perspective for the hardcore fan.
But where does Jack go? I was just going to ask, where does Jack go from here? I mean, I think his options are kind of limited, being with Mayweather Promotions, but he'll hold some fringe title, and they'll act like he's a world champ.
I think that's.
Well, they do that with every fighter, don't they?
Yeah.
Isn't everybody a world champ?
sometimes the better guys, they don't. I think Jeremiah makes an excellent point. I think that's what this fight is about. And a lot of guys would have liked to get Cleverly for that reason, is he's not a puncher. And the light heavyweight division is filled with brutal punchers and the best boxer in the world in Andre Ward. So, if you're looking to enter the legit top 10, you don't really have anywhere to look but, frankly, Nathan Cleverly. And I've also been saying it for a while. I think Eleider Alvarez is extremely overrated. So people seem to think he's a dangerous opponent. But after Cleverly, if I was looking to get into the light heavyweight top 10 and I wanted to find a guy that was vulnerable, he would be the next choice after Cleverly for me. I'm not even counting Jürgen Brammer, because I think he's going to lose to Rob Brandt in that super middleweight tournament. So I think that'll be the end of that illusion of him being a top 10 light heavyweight. I think Jack, I think that's a good point, that Jack is probably looking to pick up the secondary belt so they can say, like Mike, like you said, yeah, I'm a world champion, and what he'll probably be fighting is, even though that weight difference doesn't mean much to me anyway, guys coming up from super middleweight and things like that, and claiming it's for this WBA regular belt and ride with that for a while. I don't see him fighting any of those other top 10 light heavies and doing very well. Like I said, unless Alvarez is the only one I'd give him a crack at.
All right, so that brings us to the main event. This is for the money belt. I mean, I don't think it gets any more significant than that. I think John's probably going to have a money belt rating system up by this time next week. We've got, for some reason, Floyd Mayweather fighting against Conor McGregor. What's your take on this fight, Jeremiah?
Mike, don't sound so enthusiastic when you're talking about this. I mean, this is the biggest fight in history. You got a little.
I love that people say this is the biggest fight of the last. I mean, we had a show last night, biggest fight of the last 20 years, and I just wanted to bust out laughing. Like, no, it's not. I mean, in the last 20 years, there's been a lot bigger fights than this. I mean, 20 years takes you back to '97, which takes you back to Tyson Holyfield. You got Holyfield, Lewis, I think, since then. Tyson Lewis, even though that was kind of a shit show just because he was way past his prime. But, I mean, there's been a lot bigger fights. Manny Pacquiao's had a bunch of fights bigger. Pacquiao, De La Hoya. This fight is not one of the 20 biggest combat sporting events of the last 20 years. But, John, we haven't heard your take on this. We've had to talk about it way too much, so we'll let you start.
All right. Well, I still think that this has a chance to turn out to be very good for boxing. You've got, I said it a couple months ago. They picked the right weekend. I was a little, just from the marketing standpoint, I was a little concerned, say, a week or two ago, that maybe they were not pushing the marketing, losing their marketing momentum. But they picked it up a lot this week. I think they know what they're doing, and I hear all kinds of people talking about it now. They had the right weekend slated from the beginning. NFL preseason is complete dreck. Nobody cares about that. Baseball's not what it used to be. If this was 30, 40 years ago, you wouldn't be taking on baseball during pennant races, but nobody has to worry about that anymore. NFL hasn't started yet. College football hasn't kicked in. NFL regular season hasn't started. I just think they got the right time on this. And this is kind of an open weekend, so to speak. And I think the stars are going to align for the big sell that they've been predicting. I think for boxing, where it goes well is if Mayweather stops him and looks good doing it. When I'm analyzing this fight, I always like to think of past fights, and of course there's nothing this is really comparable to. So I had to think of past weird fights, and two came to mind. One, I was thinking of, Holmes Butterbean with Mayweather in the Holmes role. That's where it could be a little boring if Mayweather just kind of outfoxes him in the corner and just keep the jab out, and Holmes at that point didn't. Larry Holmes, a great fighter, and took plenty of guts, but at 53 years old, you can't blame him. He didn't want to throw too many right hands at Butterbean and take any chances of something wild catching him. So he just kept kept hitting him with the jab and making him look stupid. That's one that came to mind. And then another that came to mind, not, of course, because Conor McGregor is anything like Sugar Ray Leonard, but I thought about Sugar Ray Leonard Camacho just for this reason that, Leonard hadn't been fighting, and he came back, and Camacho hadn't been knocking out anybody or hurting anybody for years. And then Camacho, and he was the most cautious fighter in boxing, and then he was in there with Leonard for a few rounds, and he saw Leonard had nothing at that point. All of a sudden, he turned into a power puncher one more night. That's what I think would be good for boxing if Mayweather does that he's going to throw the caution away because he sees McGregor's got nothing. But I think if there's one problem for Mayweather in this thing is, with the 2-year layoff combined with the fact that the guy just doesn't punch anymore. I mean, look again, I keep saying this, but look at the 12th round of him and Pacquiao. You had two guys that literally didn't throw a punch. And it was ridiculous, frankly, as a boxing fan, I'm saying that. Now that was that's a few years ago. And, he's in with Conor McGregor, who's never had a boxing match before, but you have to punch the guy. And Mayweather's going to have to get back in a mode where he's going to do some punching in this thing. I do agree with what some boxing fans have said, that if it's a totally boring 12-round decision for Mayweather, I concur that's probably not going to do much for boxing. I think, he's got to really make him look bad and land a lot of punches or knock him out. And I think if he does that, I think it helps boxing a lot, possibly.
How does it help boxing for him to beat up a guy that's not a boxer?
Well, you got all those, as you correctly.
But those UFC fans are not all of a sudden going to be boxing fans just because Floyd Mayweather beat up Conor McGregor.
Some of them will.
Why?
Well,
I'm sure they've all seen boxing matches before, but if you get them a choice between Conor's next pay-per-view match and even Canelo Alvarez and Triple G, they're going to pick Conor McGregor. I mean, these are basically the people that buy this fight are the people that think Conor McGregor has a chance to win. I don't know too many boxing fans that are going to buy this. I buy a ton of pay-per-views. I'm not buying this. I mean, it's not a boxing match. It's nowhere near a boxing match. It is a boxer fighting somebody that has no business being in the ring with him. And this is like taking the Pittsburgh Steelers and having them play Youngstown State. I mean, that's not a football game. That's just a beating. It's a one-sided ass-whipping. All these guys are doing is trying to make money. I don't see how this – if Floyd Mayweather gets knocked out in the first round, it doesn't hurt boxing because boxing fans are still going to be boxing fans and UFC fans are still going to be UFC fans. In the end, the only thing this helps are their bank accounts, and the only thing it does, if anything, is hurt both sports because it's a joke. It's a circus. And if it's a serious fight, Mayweather knocks him out in 3 or 4 rounds. I'm sorry, he may not hit people hard, but Andre Berto, I think, in a real boxing match, would kick Conor McGregor's ass. Paulie Malignaggi, they pulled him off a plane and stuck him in the ring with no sleep. He had jet lag. Conor hits him hard as he can. Paulie went 12 rounds. I don't think you can send Paulie to Floyd Mayweather's camp and him make it 12 rounds unless Floyd allowed him to.
He may not be competitive, but I still think it's good for boxing if Mayweather performs well. I think a lot of these younger fans, they probably haven't watched a boxing match.
Yeah, and they don't care to. And watching Floyd Mayweather, even Floyd Mayweather at his best, he gets us over in 2 or 3 rounds. Big deal. It's not a boxing match. You're not seeing a boxing match.
I think it still makes. Well, it is. It's under the rules of boxing. It's a boxing match. It's sanctioned by the.
Yeah, the only way you can have a boxing match is if you have 2 boxers, and you don't. And it should not be sanctioned. It's a joke. I mean, they turn down all kind of fights because they think they're mismatches. But as soon as you say, hey, you can make $100 million, well, hell, we'll sanction it. I mean, it's irresponsible by the Las Vegas, by the Nevada Boxing Commission, which is not the first irresponsible thing they've ever done. And it makes a farce out of a legitimate sport that has been around as long as prostitutes have been around. I mean, 2 men fighting in a boxing ring has always been around. The MMA has been around since 1991. So it could help the MMA because maybe people will see it that never saw it before. But they're not seeing MMA. They're seeing an MMA fighter trying to be a boxer.
I think it's good. I think it helps boxing if Mayweather performs well. You've got a lot. I mean, if you get 5 million buys, that's a lot of exposure. A very, very big event. Even if it's just showing, again, like some of the pro boxing people are saying. I've heard Paulie Malignaggi said it, and I think he's right. You know, Mayweather set the rules. It's Showtime. It's Showtime pay-per-view. It shows boxing in control, that you've got to go to boxing for the big money. All these things are good for boxing.
Yeah, but see, boxing never should have brought itself to that level. Boxing doesn't have to have anything to do with the UFC. Boxing is much bigger worldwide than the UFC, and it's bigger than the UFC will ever be.
Who else would get 5 million buys fighting Floyd Mayweather right now?
Michael Jordan, LeVar Ball. I mean, people would pay to see that.
probably
somebody get their ass kicked. I mean, you can't give me that. Who else would get 5 million buys? I mean, him and Gennady Golovkin could get 2 or 3 million buys. The only reason you're getting 5 million buys is because you're throwing a bunch of UFC people that have no clue, have no respect for what it actually takes to be a boxer, and they think that their guy can just go in and knock out Floyd Mayweather. That's why you got 5 million buys. It's not because people think, if you did this, if you took with people that legitimately understood what a sport was and told them, hey, you can buy this fight or that fight, and this fight here is Triple G against Floyd Mayweather, or you can buy Floyd Mayweather against Conor McGregor, the fight that is an actual fight should do better. I mean, all the time people do gimmicks that draw. You know, the Cincinnati Reds can't draw 5,000 people, but if they have a bobblehead night, 40,000 people will show up. Those aren't baseball fans. Those people don't come back because the team still sucks.
But Mike, you made the right point. You have people watching who don't respect boxing skills, and they think Conor McGregor is going to be able to knock them out, and then Floyd Mayweather blows them out and makes them look stupid in 3 or 4 rounds.
And those people are still not watching boxing.
That's the point. They're going to have more respect.
Okay, if you're a straight boxing fan, then if Conor McGregor knocks out Floyd Mayweather, are you going to start buying pay-per-views from the UFC?
Well, I already do watch both, and
no, I said if you're a straight boxing fan. Jeremiah, do you buy pay-per-views from the MMA, UFC?
No, but no.
But if Conor McGregor knocks out Floyd Mayweather, would you then pay more attention?
Well, I mean, it really depends on how McGregor looks. I mean, if he legitimately looks as if he picked up the sport very quickly, yeah, I would probably pay a bit more attention to him.
Yeah, so how does that help boxing? Because I just don't think UFC fans are wired that all of a sudden Floyd Mayweather boxing his ears off is going to make them spend money on that. Because remember, the UFC puts on a pay-per-view show, every 2 weeks, damn near.
Well, I mean,
they're not going to split their money and all of a sudden buy Triple G and Canelo instead of the next Conor McGregor fight.
Well, maybe not, but they're again. I mean, it's tough to say because a lot of these people are casual mixed martial arts fans. That's certainly true. I mean, like Michael Montero said when we were on the show last night, Espinoza from Showtime looked at he looked at and saw that there was a market for this, and it was the casual mixed martial arts fan. But and again, it's hard to say, but there very well could be. I have a friend like this who used to be a hardcore mixed martial arts fan, and then he started watching boxing a little bit, and he started to understand the nuance of it, and he started to respect the sport a bit more because he understood that the gap in talent between a mixed martial arts fighter's boxing ability and an actual boxer's boxing ability, that it was night and day. So I mean, you may get some converts. I mean, that is a lot of exposure. They expect something like 50 million people to watch this fight, whether it's on closed circuit or whatnot. I mean, not everybody's just going to turn the TV off afterwards and be like, oh well, fuck it.
No, but I think that's a good point. It's a good point about the boxing skills thing. Is that there are some younger, legitimate mixed martial arts fans who are not stupid, who just with not having exposure to boxing, they're not envisioning that Conor McGregor can't get in there and beat Floyd Mayweather because McGregor's got this great punching power and he's taken so many UFC guys out quickly. And that's why the odds are where they are most likely is those types of fans. But if Mayweather, takes McGregor out quickly, and looks good doing it, I think it does. I think it's not crazy that some of those people might buy a Canelo Alvarez Gennady Golovkin a few weeks later. But if it's a really boring outing by Mayweather, and McGregor's trying to chase him down, and Mayweather's not throwing any punches, I've said from the beginning, I don't think that's going to help boxing.
All right. So what's your prediction, John?
Right, which is tough on something like this. It actually is an official sanctioned boxing match by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, so you've got to make a pick, and you really don't have too much to go on. I ended up, and you got to make a pick, you got to put yourself out there. I got to end up going by Mayweather by decision, because he should be able to take him out, but just all these fights in recent years of his, I mean, he didn't end up getting upset, but I thought when he was in with Pacquiao, that wasn't a great performance by Mayweather or Pacquiao. I thought Mayweather won the fight, but I think, when you look at that fight and you're watching it, some of those rounds there were hardly any punches thrown or landed, and if a couple rounds got flipped, I thought it could have been a draw. So, I think in that sense, Mayweather is playing with fire with his punch rate. Yeah, he's still good defensively, but his offense is just shriveling up to nothing. I'd like to see him. That's why I came up with the Camacho Leonard example, because as a boxing fan, what I'd like to see is Mayweather in that Camacho role where he finds out he's in with a guy that has nothing, and he decides to open up and takes him out. But I don't think he will do that. I think it'll probably be a decision. But one thing that the odds makers don't give any chance of, that I'm certainly not predicting it, I'm picking Floyd Mayweather, but I do see a remote scenario here where, Conor McGregor might be able to jump around and just move his hands, and if his stamina turns out to be good, Mayweather's just not punching. And I'm not saying he's going to go in and do that in this one, but the guy's 40 years old and he hasn't fought in 2 years, and he wasn't punching before this. So it's going to take the fact of McGregor being a novice that has nothing to get him to open up. And if for some reason he doesn't anyway, I mean, maybe he puts himself at risk if McGregor's just so awkward and starts jumping around and just moving his hands or something. I'm not saying he'd be effective particularly, but that he just starts stealing a few rounds or something like that. I don't see the one punch scenario for McGregor that the odds makers give him the best chance at. I'm not seeing that one myself.
All right, Jeremiah.
Oh yeah, well, I think it's nice that we want to be hopeful that Mayweather knocks him out. That's what I'm really hoping for, honestly. I mean, I don't know when the last time I rooted for Mayweather actually was.
I never have.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think about it, and maybe early in his career, really early in his career, maybe I was. He was an Olympian, and he had been doing it since he was in the crib. I don't know, but in this fight, I'm hoping that he knocks McGregor out. He's got to end the fight as quickly as he can, because it's just not worth it. But I'm going to predict a decision as well. I think with the money involved in this fight, I just it makes you risk adverse, and I think if Mayweather can poke and peck his way to a decision, I think that's what he'll do. But I hope that isn't what he'll do. It's just the variables. I mean, really, it's either a late stoppage or a unanimous decision for for Floyd Mayweather Jr. If McGregor has any chance at all, which is virtually nothing, I'm hoping that he'll move his hands, but of course that's not his style in the octagon as well. I mean, typically he's a counterpuncher, but if he wants any chance at all, he's going to have to just let his hands go, grab Mayweather, rough him up, bang him on the inside, and try and use that. But unfortunately, it just won't be enough. I'm picking Mayweather by decision.
All right. I'm going to pick Mayweather by knockout, like the 8th or 9th round. I think McGregor will get frustrated. I think he'll wear out. He wore out against Nate Diaz in 5-minute rounds. This is something where he's totally out of water. It's not against Paulie Malignaggi. So I'm going to take Mayweather in 9. All right, we're going to go and wrap this up. Make sure you check us every week on the Inside Boxing Weekly Show. You can listen to all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.